Americans are getting slapped in the face by inflation right now, harder than Chris Rock got slapped by Will Smith at the Oscars. And in order to deal with this, President Biden just announced 1 million barrels of oil per day to be released from the strategic reserves. This comes right as in line with the news that the Federal Reserve's favorite way to measure inflation, which is the PCE, just rose the most in 40 years. It's up 5.4%, and it's their favorite measure of inflation because it excludes the expensive stuff like food and energy. And when you add those things back in, it looks like the headline PCE measure jumped 6.4%. That is the fastest pace since 1982. So we are going to talk about, number one, what is going on with inflation. Number two, is this massive draining of the strategic oil reserves going to do anything for prices at the gas pump and utility bills for Americans? Ready? Let's dive in. All right, guys, you can see here that excluding food and energy, prices increased 5.4% as measured by the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. Again, this is the Federal Reserve's favorite measure of inflation, and that's the one that excludes food and energy. When you add those back in, you get 6.4%. That was the fastest since 1982. So we're seeing these pressures come together. The video I made yesterday about jobs, basically more job openings, and so the Federal Reserve is getting hit from one side with higher and higher inflation, hit from the other side with a stronger and stronger jobs market. And I say stronger because that's the way they're measuring it. They're just saying, hey, as long as we have job openings, that's the only thing that we can look at for the labor market, because they are tasked with two mandates by Congress. One of them is stable prices, the other one is full employment. And so they're looking at all these job openings and they're saying, hey, we can't do anything to make people go get jobs. And so as long as there are job openings, we're saying that's a strong labor market. And if people want jobs, they're available. And so they're getting hit from one side with, they've by their measure met their mandate for employment. And then on the other side, they have not met their mandate with stable prices, because every single month, every time another one of these records is broken, they're getting more and more political pressure in order to do something about this inflation. And so we're as long as nothing catastrophic happens, we're very likely going to see more and more rate increases through the rest of this year. They're going to tighten until something breaks.
And now, a quick word from today's video sponsor, Masterworks.
Today, investors face a dilemma. Inflation is at its highest point in 40 years. The Fed is going through a phase of very aggressive monetary tightening, and top firms are anticipating returns in the stock market of under 5% until 2035. Because of this, restructuring your portfolio has never been more important and more difficult. So where can you turn? Well, you know that I've been advocating for alternative investments for years, outside of the standard 60-40 stock and bond portfolio that most financial advisors would want to put you in. And it seems like these days people are catching up. A recent JP Morgan report declared alternative assets are no longer optional. In light of this new normal, certain platforms have arisen that give investors access to top alternative asset classes. And there's one in particular that seems like a no-brainer to me. It's called Masterworks. Masterworks.io has solidified itself as the platform for investing in contemporary art. This is real art. This is not digital art. This is not NFTs. With Masterworks, you can access their exclusive investments from names like Banksy, Monet, and other iconic artists for just a fraction of what billionaires pay to purchase. Because roughly 2/3 of billionaires allocate between 10 and 30% of their portfolio into art. Partly because it's a way to diversify, and partly because it is a natural inflation hedge. And it makes sense. Contemporary art pieces have outperformed the S&P 500 Total Return Index by 164% from the years 1995 to 2021. Not only that, but they've shown the lowest correlation to equities of nearly any major asset class. Since 2020, Masterworks has sold 3 paintings, with each returning over 30% net IRR to investors and their new offerings usually sell out in hours. Again, each one over 30%. And if you want to get in on it early, all you have to do is go to masterworks.io, create an account, check out what they have, and invest in their offerings. And my subscribers get to skip the wait list by using the link that I have in the description below. In order to deal with this inflation, we just saw Biden announce million barrel a day oil release in order to try and push down prices. And so number one, this is massive. They're starting to drain these reserves here. And so we'll see what it does to prices. We'll see if it actually has a big impact, but this is a big release. In this announcement, it looks like he's also invoking Cold War powers in order to add to the list of items covered by the Defense Production Act, stuff that you need to make batteries for electric vehicles. More central planning there that will likely lead to misallocation of resources and miscalculation of for economic plans by participants in a free market. These are not things that you normally want to see. Central planning trying to encourage where it sends the economy instead of just letting free individual actors make their choices by themselves. But it is what it is. We're seeing that happening, and so in line with this, they're also saying, hey, we're going to be releasing all these million barrels of oil per day, and blaming companies for not producing more. But if you're a company and you're just now starting to see the fruits of your labor from all these years of oil being so cheap and a lot of money not coming into the industry, you're just now starting to reap the rewards. There's not going to be a big incentive to start jacking up production, which will inevitably lead to prices coming back down. It's just a supply and demand thing. Same with OPEC. They're not making any changes to how much they're releasing. We're going to see the same plan. They're gradually increasing their existing plan to increase supply in May by 432,000 barrels a day, and so not much. Their gradual increase. They're not going to be changing that. And in response, we'll see what happens. The oil price dropped significantly early on in trading, and it is back up. It is down 3.5% right now. So we'll see if this makes a dent. We'll see if it's not enough. But as of right now, administrations around the world are they're kind of panicking about how to deal with this, because over the last couple of years we've seen governments around the world intervene in order to rescue their economies. They've sacrificed the purchasing power of their currencies in order to rescue their economies, and now we're seeing the fallout of that. It takes a long time for these things to unfold. When you look at how much time it takes for monetary policy to work its way throughout the economy, it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and it takes a long time for these things to happen. And so by the time you start to see the main impacts of that reckless monetary and fiscal policy, there's other things that policymakers will look at and blame. You're going to blame Russia invading Ukraine. You're going to blame supply chain issues. You're going to blame all these things happening around the world that have nothing to do. They're more than likely symptoms or results of the bad monetary and fiscal policy in the first place. They're not the causes of the symptoms that we're seeing right now. And so we're going to see more of the same like that, and it puts policymakers in a position where if you choose to let the economy go and save your currency, you experience a lot of immediate economic pain, and your people do, and so that's a very unpopular decision by policymakers. And then the other option that they have is to sacrifice the purchasing power of your currency to rescue their economy. And that's one of those long-term, you're sacrificing long-term strength for short-term gain, and you get a little bit of short-term pleasure for your people. It's more politically popular, but inevitably that results in more problems down the road. And so that's more than likely what they're going to choose. We shall see what happens when things start falling over, whether the Federal Reserve decides to reverse course, start up QE again, lower rates, or whether they stick to the plan and they say, hey, we have to fight inflation. Because if they don't say they're going to have to fight inflation, then we're going to see that at that point, that's when you really risk hyperinflation. As always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day.